Welcome to Fluid Backstage 2016. I'm your host, Josh Hageman. With us today for this segment is All Sons and Daughters, and we have David and Leslie in the house. Welcome, guys.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much for
Thanks
being
for
a part
having
of Fluid. Let me ask you right off the bat, what do you think of our Canadian weather? I gotta ask that. I know it's a random, cheesy question, but I have to ask it.
I think today's better than the first time we came.
Okay.
We drove to Moncton, our very first time in Canada, and it was
Hilarious.
like 6 feet of snow on either side of the road. So today's
There was ice on the inside of the car.
Yeah.
So it was forming on the
Yeah.
inside. It was so
Oh,
cold
yeah,
that
no worries.
Yeah.
it was unreal. So
Yeah.
we'd never seen anything like that. So today feels like it's a summer day outside, man. It's perfect.
But we've also been here in September and May, and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
So
It's true.
I guess there's beauty to the four seasons, but
Yeah.
coming from Nashville, I always wonder how much of a shock it must be for people coming into our kind of climate. It's crazy. Speaking of climate, speaking of all that kind of stuff, one of the things that we've noticed here, even in our Canadian, there is a spiritual climate. And God is doing something. We recognize that within our midst. I know you guys recognize that within your midst. And one of the themes this year for Fluid is simply called. I believe, I'm assuming that you guys believe that you're called to worship. And that's something that as a vocation God's given you to do. Would you care to talk about that a little bit?
man, we both have such different stories, but for me, I grew up in the church, and singing was always a part of my family, and music just kind of lived in our house, and so I didn't really like hear that call. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but I started understanding the connection between hearing something from God and wanting to express something back to Him. And music for me has always been an expression, and so through worship, worship, really became a part of something that I started sowing my life into because other people encouraged that in me. Not because it was, at the time, not because it was something I felt like I was going to do the rest of my life. And David and I were just having this conversation last night. I think leading and musical worship is something that I do feel like has been woven into the fabric of my being. That's just something that I'll do if it's in a church of 20 people in the middle of nowhere, Colorado, or in Nashville, Tennessee. Like I feel like that's just a part of who I am and what I do, and to deny that, I think, would be ignoring that call. Yeah.
That's cool. What about you, man?
Dude, it was one of those deals that, it's one of those things that you feel like some things you can't run from.
Yeah.
And whether you call it called or whether you just call it the beautiful will of God, it's like, it's one of those deals that I think that we've, I don't know, man. It's just one of those deals that I tried to run away from church stuff for a really, really long time. And it's even separated myself from it and fell in love with community, fell in love with a group of people, which opened me up to that kind of thing. It was one of those deals that I didn't want any part of it. And even if I felt like I was called to it, even if I felt like it was a path that God was leading me to, I wasn't chasing after it because I was trying to just get away from it. And the community at our church and our small groups is one of those things that brought me back into this appreciation for it. And I think simply worship and that kind of stuff was just a response that came out of it. And walking forward in it, we talked about last night, just getting older. Like, you start to realize as you get older the things that you do and the things that God lays before you. And so I think it's just having your eyes opened up to the things that are happening around you. And it's really interesting what God seems to do. He seems to prepare you for things that you think that you're going to do, but at the same time you don't feel like you're going to do. But He tends to lay these things out for us and place things in our path that continually prepare us for what He has for us. And we just feel lucky to be able to get to do what we do, serve with the community that we get to, and yeah.
It's interesting because I know a lot of people. Every church has worship within it for the most part, and worship leaders and so on and so forth. And there's always this idea of mentorship and discipleship that comes into play. And I'm assuming again that in your churches that there would have been worship leaders that kind of brought you under your wing when you were younger and maybe, showed you or, mentored you or discipled you along the way. How much of that plays a role in your lives now?
I mean, a ton. It's this, you've been sown into, and now it's this, you feel this responsibility and this conviction and excitement into staying connected and pouring in. And the last 5 years has been kind of this, trying to figure out this balance of being home and serving the church and being on the road and serving this call that God's kind of designed for us, and so we've tried to stay as tethered to our community as possible, because what we do on the road doesn't make any sense if we're not tied to community, and so I mean, I wouldn't be doing what I was doing if there weren't people who led me into that, and who saw something in me and called that out of me, and so I know for myself, and I know for David, I feel like I can speak for him as well, that we feel this strong desire to do the same. And we've been around the world and talking to worship leaders, and we're realizing that back home there's this strong need for the same thing. And so, as I said before, we're just figuring out this balance of being there and sowing in and being intentional with our own people, and it looks different through different seasons. But I'd say that the people that have influenced us are definitely why we do a lot of the things we do today.
Makes sense. David, I'll ask you this question. When this whole call or gift, talent kind of started coming down the pipe for you, did you ever think that it would get to this level? And do you ever think that, X amount of years from now you'd be sitting, like touring around the world leading worship? Is that something that you set out to do, or did it just kind of happen?
In a different time of my life, yeah, for sure. Like whenever coming out of college and stuff, like the goal was to self-gain, if you want to say. Like it was to get bigger and to do grand things and all that kind of stuff. And then God flipped something on me and brought a group of people into my life that really grounded me. And so my focus started to shift from self things to community things and church things. And after that, the focus had nothing to do with furthering the name of myself or All Sons and Daughters or anything. It was simply trying to resource a church with music. And God's done crazy things out of that, the outpouring that's kind of come. And it's been one of those things from day one where we've always kind of gone, we can literally throw our hands up and go, the Lord's done things with this that we never thought that we'd ever be doing. We never thought, even we didn't know if our congregation would even sing the songs that we were writing.
That's hilarious.
And so to see that other churches have connected with it, we don't take it lightly. We think it's pretty awesome, and we love that other people have found something new in God through music, which is such a powerful tool. And so, yeah, it's definitely a blessing to be able to do what we do, but there's no expectation for anything grander or anything. We simply try to live in the moment and enjoy what we're doing while we're doing it. So.
The one question I think a lot of people have, it's just you see worship leaders and they're writing the songs that churches are singing, and we're singing the songs that you guys are writing. What are you singing? What do you listen to?
That's a great question.
Right? Like
Yeah.
if you're writing all that stuff, like do you listen to your own music or do you outsource it? Like what's in your iPod? When you're going to worship God, like on your own, what do you listen to?
It's different for both of us.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of, we're listening to a lot of top 40 and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but also listen to a ton of instrumentals and things like that, music that moves a lot without words. For myself, sometimes I just get lost in the fact of it and the simplicity of nothing to distract me from an emotion that's being pulled from an instrumental. Is something that's been really beautiful for myself, and then with a 4-year-old, I'm listening to a ton of. She's listening to this Bethel Kid stuff. And man, like that's some of the sweetest moments for myself, sitting in the car, listening to her sing these songs, and it's like
so great.
that's beyond anything to me. Like, it's like I'll start crying, man. It's like, what is this? Like, this
That's
is
awesome.
this is not my thing, but to see my kid worship is one of those deals that it's really beautiful. So I'm across the board, a lot of different stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, same. Like, I think in the context of church, because I would say a lot of mine are very similar to his, but in the context of church and what we do back home, like, we're listening to anything and everything, you know, like what, and we try a lot of different things to see what resonates with our people. I mean, that's what's most important to us is what's the song that we collectively need to sing, not like what's my favorite song.
Right.
What do I want to lead? And sometimes they happen to be the same, which is awesome. Like,
Yeah,
this is my favorite
good.
song to lead,
That is good.
and the people love it. So I mean, yeah, we listen to a lot of Bethel. You know, we've found life in random places, random bands and random songs. So yeah.
That's awesome. My next question was, where, as far as worship leading goes, where's your inspiration come from? And is it the same for a lot of worship bands? Like, do they look around? Do you look at what Hillsong is doing, Bethel, Jesus Culture? Like, do you look, see what they're doing and gain inspiration from that? Or is it completely from a different source?
I don't think it's intentional looking and going, what are they doing? Let's be like them. If anything, I think what we gain from observing other church cultures is, man, they're really digging in and learning the DNA of their people and learning how to serve them based on who they are as a culture. And so I think that has been something that we've tried to do from day one is, as All Sons and Daughters, we serve at Journey Church, and the songs we write aim to serve Journey Church. And so it's been our agenda. The only agenda is to just get to know our people. And I think through that, then we learn how to serve them with music, and we're a product of our environment. So Nashville, there's a lot of musical, cultural influences in how we record and even how we write, and so I think we respect what other churches are doing, but I definitely would say, you know, we're more a product of where we come from and the people we serve with than anybody else. You know, like looking to anybody else in the same way that they would say the exact same thing. Like, they're a product of Redding, California, and a product of Sydney, Australia, or whatever. Yeah.
The goal for you, both of you, when you're leading worship, how do you know that you've done a good job? What's the test?
We stopped taking that pressure
Yeah.
on a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, because it was just one of those things, man, that when we did, you know, with the culture of our church and what was going on, it was kind of one of those deals that if it was a bad Sunday, it was like, oh, we did something wrong. But if it was a good Sunday, it was like, oh, God was really good. And it's like, it's really easy to take on the pressure of, if it goes bad, it's our fault. If it goes good, it's God doing really great things. And it's like, man, that's not for us to carry. And our thing has always been to try to eliminate as many distractions as possible. So allowing people to have an environment that they can engage with God in a brand new way. And when we started having that mindset and stopped trying to get people from point A to point B and just facilitated a space for them to be able to engage in, it really allowed us to free up and not take on that pressure. So it's no pressure that anyone needs to carry, man. It's a horrible burden to carry. Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Do you, you're obviously on the road traveling a lot. Did you miss your respective families? Like, how do you deal with that?
It's hard.
It's got to be tough. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I look at it like this: you're traveling on the road, you're leading at your home church when you're home, and then somewhere in the mix, you got to make time, you know, for your respective families. Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah. I've been really lucky the last couple of years. My husband's actually traveled with us, which has been awesome. But he just recently took a job back home, and so we're relearning how to be apart, which is interesting. And I might steal your answer, but technology has changed everything, because I wake up in the morning, I'm looking at his face,
There you go.
thanks to my iPhone and FaceTime. Like, So there's something different from just talking on the phone to actually like being able to see and watch, facial expressions and, David's got a daughter, and so being able to talk to your daughter, I know that's.
I'm trying to discipline her on the way here today, which is a mess, but it's parenting, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything is in balance, and we try to like. We watch when we're home and when we're away. Like we're always home for events, like we don't miss Easters and Christmases and birthdays. And we've got friends that travel all the time and they miss everything. And so I think we've kind of learned from watching some of the woes of being traveling musicians. Like, man, we just really never want to miss this or never want to sacrifice this for that. And so it's just been a lot of intentional conversations and making sure we don't misstep in that. Care for our families.
That's good. The generation that we're targeting here with Fluid is that young adult generation. And looking at you guys and seeing your music, listening to your music, there is a strong following in that young adult generation as well. What's your hope for that generation?
We really anticipate and expect to see God in a brand new way. And I think it's the same in each day. And I think it's kind of the hope and the desire is that we could all kind of lessen our distractions and allow ourselves to take the time and give ourselves the space to ask questions that we haven't normally asked. Right. Growing up in a culture that's always been to shy away from any kind of vulnerability or the real things that I feel inside. And we feel like our church and the culture that we've been in has been seeking for that real stuff, has been trying to get away from the fakeness, has been trying to simply take off layers and simply be themselves. And that's the hope and desire. When I think about my daughters, the hope and desire is that she can be herself. She can have the opportunity to be the person that God has created her to be. And I think that once we start limiting all those things that pull us away, phones and computers and things, and we start having these conversations, and the hope is that people would talk more and be honest about where they are and how they feel, and allow really sweet things to happen through conversation.
That's good. What about you?
Man, I think there's definitely this desire in me to see this generation embrace each other more. We're, like David said, we're a part of it. Like, and part of the problem is that the world is distracting us from FaceTime, like real FaceTime with each other, and so it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to if you look at Instagram long enough, you go, well, I want my life to look like that. And you start to desire things that aren't real, that aren't tangible, that aren't part of a kingdom mindset. And so we live in such an image-driven culture that it would be really, I don't know. I think when I think back to when I was in college, like we were so social justice minded. I remember that generation. It was like, this is going to be the generation that changes the world, and I believe it. I think that like that group of people, like they're some of the ones who have started some of these incredible nonprofits that are doing unbelievable things. And I don't have a pulse on this generation necessarily. I know that there is a greater desire for realness because of what the internet has kind of created. But I hope and pray that whatever it is, it's, going back to what David said, it's just about being in the moment, be present wherever you are. And because I think we can sometimes get lost in past regrets or future hopes. So, yeah.
Well, David, Leslie, thanks so much for being a part of Fluid, and thanks so much for your hearts.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, your hope for this generation and with, what God's been doing in your lives. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks so
Fluid
much.
Backstage. We'll see you next time.